All right, everyone, welcome to this month's session of Agents to Agents, a live Zoom panel session where we have real estate professionals educating other real estate professionals on things they do best. This month's theme is prospecting for listings, and I want to thank our three panelists that are joining us here today. We have, in no particular order, Roni Sterin from the Kai's Company. Welcome, Roni. Rachael Barach. Did I butcher that? From Remax Preferred.
Hi, everybody.
And we have Nikki Hanna from LoKation Real Estate. Welcome, panelists.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Hi.
So let's start off with just a brief introduction, a little bit about your business or what you do, and perhaps why you've been included on this panel, what it is that you do that is unique and special that has made your business thrive. We'll go in reverse order here. Nikki, why don't you start us off?
Thanks for having me here, and a little bit about myself. So I started in real estate actually in 2000. My first husband was a builder, so we did a lot of different kind of real estate. Then I shifted out of it for a while. I was the CEO for a Chamber of Commerce, Davie Cooper City, owned several gyms in the fitness industry, and then I got back into it 5 years ago. And I enjoy obviously being like a hometown realtor and having other reported with other realtors in the community. I'm an alumni from Nova Southeastern University. I have several different certifications in real estate, and I obviously work every single day hard to work on prospecting listings and building rapport in the community, and really just referral based is what I think is key to building listings and sustaining in this market, no matter what type of things we're facing, whether it's high interest rates or low interest rates or a good economy or not. It's all about relationships.
Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. I appreciate it. Rachael, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Rachael Barach. I specialize in the East Side, Pompano Beach. I have a small team made up of myself, one agent, one full-time admin, and a part-time virtual assistant. I'm here because I'm really listing heavy. I do about 84% listings, 16% buyers.
Thank you for that breakdown, Rachael. Appreciate it. And Roni, last but not least.
So I'm here because Jonathan told me to be here. That is the main thing. My name is Roni Sterin. I've been doing this for almost 11 years, since my daughter was born. And I am mainly in Broward. And I do have a team. I get to tell my husband what to do every day, not only at home, also at work. And I have two other agents and a transaction coordinator that works with us.
Fantastic. Now, each of your models and your intent and how you operate your business is very unique. And you guys operate in different marketplaces for the most part, but all in all, there's a lot of competition that's out there when an agent, a realtor is starting their business or looking to adapt and go more into the prospecting for listings initiative. There are certain things that you can do to be more effective or run through your own experiences and learn from those mistakes. So let's start off with what are the most effective methods that you have used to prospect for listings in your area? Rachael, you're going to go first this time.
Sure. Farming is the number one. Signs in the neighborhoods really help me out. I talk to a lot of agents, and when you ask them, where they sell, they'll say everywhere. I mean, I've sold everywhere too. I've sold recently in Bradenton, Florida, but I find it very important to specialize in one area where people know you. It's easier to get listings when you're going in with people already knowing who you are. So I think once you guys start and pick an area, make sure there's turnover. And then you really want to be the local expert. You really want your face and name known with the local businesses and with the homeowners.
Awesome. Thank you. Roni, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm one of those immigrants. I'm one of those. I immigrated to the United States in 2013 and, built my business after that. I am, when I came here, once I got my license, I created my community, I created, you know, it's pseudo farming. I created back in the day, 10 years ago, the Facebook group, being original on a Facebook group, giving the added value, becoming an expert. Ever since that, I have become known as the expert for the Cooper City, Davie, Weston, West Pembroke Pines area. That's the area that I mainly focus on. My team does what they feel like, but that's the main area that I'm in. So it's all about who you know, how you behave, and understanding that there is enough business for everybody, and don't ever talk ill about anybody else. So that's the way I see it.
Awesome. Nikki, why don't you round it out and then we'll go conversely there.
So I own in several different developments, rental properties. So when I hopped back into this full-time 5 years ago, I started with where I own property at as my farming areas, because I had rapport with people from HOA meetings, or, you know, just people wanting to sell their house, or wanting to buy in that area. So I had them in Davie and Plantation. That was the first kind of like niche that I started. Then I really started to sponsor certain groups. One being, I belong to St. Gregory Catholic Church, so I'm in the women's group there, and I have a niche with a lot of probate there. And when obviously someone loses a spouse or what have you, they need to downsize, sell their house. So I live in Davie by the Rolling Hills golf course. So there's two neighborhoods there. So I do market and farm in there as well. But I'm a big gym person. So my gym is kind of like my Cheers, where almost I sell a lot of people's home in my, in my gym, if they're downsizing or moving. So it's really just everywhere you're at. It's just building those rapports. And yes, like Roni said, having those relationships in the community, the realtors, makes it very important to get deals done, because they have inventory sometimes ahead of time, and they'll let you know, I have something coming up, and we need to have that, so we know for potential buyers too.
So I'm really hearing a lot. It's about building relationships and name familiarity and ingraining yourself in the local community as being the go-to individual person. So, conversely, it hasn't always been daisies and rainbows for you guys. You haven't tried something and everything went perfectly. What are
Right.
some of the common mistakes or things that you experienced in your learning going along the way as you were trying to farm and prospect specific areas? You want to go opposite here, Nikki? Why don't you start us?
I think one would be kind of like just staying with where like the best. So like I'm obviously a West Broward person. So sometimes when you farm on the east side, people want to use me because I am originally from Hollywood, and I do know a lot about the, east side of town, but not as much as I do on an everyday basis as I do out west. So when I potentially go east sometimes, and you want to start a campaign out there of trying to sell, you have to learn the learning curve, because there's a lot of different things over there. So it doesn't always, like you said, rainbows and all that. I mean, there's a lot of hurdles selling east for me, because there's insurance, the schools are completely different than out west. It's very transient. So it's always having to relearn markets and stuff. So sometimes a listing can be a lot more difficult if it's not something that's in like your, backyard. And then obviously trying to cultivate, getting people to understand that these are the outside potential issues that we're having with selling that house. A lot of people don't want to listen to that because they're in a luxury house on the east side. They think that, they're sitting on gold, but there's still outside forces that can affect selling the house, especially with the insurance and being on the water and stuff. So it's not always easy in all these different markets to do. So I personally like to stay out west, where I feel most comfortable selling, because that's my home, and that's where I know the most. So it's other people want you to sell east. Sometimes you feel like you gotta kind of stay, where you're at, and people always want to just go after the money, go after the money. Well, unless the house can be sold, it doesn't really turn into money. So and if you don't know something, you have to ask questions. And I'm thankful that my mom was a principal. She always says asking questions is always key. And I'm always asking questions if I don't know something, and not just assuming. And I have a lot of great mentors. And if I don't know something, I'll Google it or I'll find out. So there's always a learning curve, no matter how big you get. And we've all had trial and error and had made mistakes, and it's, you know, learning from them and then telling your story and then, you know, finding a different, you know, restructure to make that plan work.
Okay, so roll with the punches, be maneuverable when your plan comes about, and stick to your specialty. Don't be afraid to say no.
Correct.
Okay. Rachel, let's go to you.
A lot of mistakes that I see people making with farming especially is they'll try an area for a while and maybe they'll spend some money and they don't get a return. I think that it is about being consistent and it is about, you know, it's a long-term play. It's nothing short-term. Of course, you can send that one mailer and get a listing out of it, but I think a lot of people give up too easily. The other thing that I would say in the beginning, because there's three, you know, specific neighborhoods that I farm consistently for years. And I always have listings in them, always. There's never a month that goes by that I don't have a listing in there. But I would say one mistake I made at the beginning is not really picking where I want to sell in. So I would say to everybody, don't be afraid if there's a dominant agent in that neighborhood. People get tired of the dominant agent after a while. Things change and things turn over. So when you're looking to pick an area, pick where you really want to sell. You know, there's one area that I do dominate and I'm very grateful for it, but the price point is lower. So had I started a higher end property when I started that, then I would be dominating a higher end neighborhood instead of that specific neighborhood. So I would say, don't let it scare you, the price point, the competitors, pick where you want to sell, make sure that there's a lot of turnover in that area, and then focus on it and be consistent. The other thing that I really learned, people pay a lot of money for other companies to market or send letters. All of those things you know, my virtual assistant does for me for, you know, such a small cost. So if you see a mailing program, if some kind of flyer that someone sends, don't think that you have to pay top dollar for a company to do it. You can find someone, whether it's a VA or someone on Fiverr, that can do it for such a small amount. So really be careful where you're spending your money. You want to spend the littlest amount of money with the highest return. So a lot of those things that you see people buying, or I see people in my office paying top dollar for, you can hire other people to do it cheaper and make them just as well.
Great valid point there. And that you brought up a few things that are going to lead us into our next section or our next conversation. But Roni, let's hear from you first.
So kind of continuing what Rachel was saying. A lot of people coming and have the expectations of going to $1 million listings or whatever they saw on HGTV lately or anything else. I did my first year, actually, Jonathan, you met me my first year, but I did my first year $120,000 on rentals. Take that in. You're not above it. You're not better than that. And stop, I can't handle, and I see Jamie's on here, Jaime, but we've had this conversations that people go in with this interpretation and this expectation that they're going to go and list the house and have this and have, going with an expectation, you're there to learn. The first thing you're doing is learning. And that is the highest point. And that is something that I learned on my own, is that I'm there to learn. I'm here, you know, even 11 years into it, I'm there to learn still. Somebody did ask, and this is a downfall, is that did I, you know, door knocking or mailers or ads or anything? Listen, it's a waste of money, in my personal opinion. It's a waste of money. I learned it the hard way when I tried to get listing and when I tried to get, you know, things going for myself. And I tried, when I started the business, I had just given birth to my second child. I moved to this country a couple of years prior. Everything was up in the air for me. I learned an area. I went out to, I live in Cooper City, went out to Aventura in order to, you know, do rentals for $1,200 for anything else. It's not beneath you. And I see everybody saying hi, so that's saying yes, but that's fine. So that's the first thing. So, and then the second thing is that, I try, you know, it sounds horrible and, you know, most of you don't know me, but I trusted some people that I thought would help me. In my personal view, and Rachel is saying yes, I trusted people that, you know, I thought would help me and are there for me for some kind of reason in this industry. Unless you find a good mentor, and I'm lucky to have been able to ask you, Jonathan, or Jaime, or anybody else things. Unless you find a good mentor, I'm sorry, but you can't trust people. It sounds horrible, but you can't. That's my personal experience. It came from, you know, just people don't, I am of the belief that there's enough business out there for everybody, but they saw it as I'm coming in and I'm taking over their territory. So as Rachael said, you know, there's a certain agent that is dominant in a certain area. Hopefully my area loves me still, and I have good response, but you know, there's always somebody who doesn't like that agent. There's always somebody who wants a new voice or a new feeling or something else. So find somebody, as a whole, find somebody you trust to ask questions to.
I love what you just said in the end there is don't be intimidated by a specific area that's dominated by an agent at the current moment. If you're not upsetting somebody else, you're probably not doing well enough.
I'm doing awesome.
And also taking rentals. It's a great way to build your network and start to build a database of referrals that you can continue to work with. And rentals could be a great way to get yourself into a neighborhood. So let's talk about identifying a neighborhood or a farming area. How do you identify and target an area for prospecting? Is it based on how much turnover, how many homes are in the area, price point? What is your identifier? How do you pick where you want to go? Anyone can go first. Rachael, you're unmuted. Why don't you start?
Sure. Well, I think one, there has to be turnover. I work primarily on the east side, and there are certain neighborhoods that, you know, there's not a lot of turnover in there. They may have a very high price point, but there's not a lot of turnover. So first you need to make sure that homes are transferring in there. And then it's very easy once you have a sale in the neighborhood to parlay that into more listings. So if you are just starting out and you do have a sale in the neighborhood and your sign is in there, it makes it a lot easier than to go in cold. So if you are just starting and you have listings, single family homes or condos, you know, you can use that over and over again to try to get more business. I think that one thing that was mentioned that I hear about a lot, like the rental thing. So we do about 40 rentals a year, and a lot of the agents I know can't believe, you know, that I still do rentals. One rental that I did last year led me to 2 sales, one for 4.7 and one for 4.750, and it was because of a rental. The top agents that I know, my competitors, they all still do rentals. So I know that there's a lot of agents that say, no, I don't do that. They add up and those people turn into buyers and they turn into referrals for sellers. So I would say, you know, you have to be smart. I don't take tenants out ever. I take rental listings. You know, my team member Crystal will take the tenants out if that's what's happening. But you know, there's people that you don't want to mess with at all, bad credit, pit bulls, you know, things like that. So you have to be strategic in who you take. But rentals, if you keep the relationship going, they will equal, you know, sales later on. But I would say, getting back to your question, pinpointing the neighborhood, you want turnover, you want a decent average sale price in the neighborhood. And then you need a plan, you need a marketing plan. So what a lot of people do is they'll maybe, you know, send something for 5 months and then they stop. It is like I said, it's a long-term play. And then you really have to be careful at, you know, where you're spending your money. I know a lot of agents that on the outside, it looks, you know, like they're very successful, that they're making a lot of money, but they don't have anything. So what really matters is your net, what you're keeping. It doesn't matter what you're bringing in. So you have to pay very, you know, very close attention to where you're spending your money. There's some agents in my market that spend so much money on Zillow. I would be so curious to look at their P&L. So you just have to be very careful what you're doing and where you're spending money. Somebody once told me, one of my mentors said BLM, and I thought that they were talking, you know, I was like, what is that? Black Lives Matter? And they're like, no, bottom line matters. Like that's the only thing that matters in our business.
Well stated, and we're going to transition off of that question in a second. Nikki, why don't you go here?
So I'm a huge supporter of the Buffini program. So that is a referral based prospecting within like your sphere of influence. So I came with the book of business into real estate from my businesses and from being a CEO of a chamber of commerce. So every single month, for the last 5 years, everyone is touched by a mailer to their house, and that's how I typically get my referrals. In several neighborhoods that I do own in, one being in Plantation Park Court, I sell a lot in there because I've owned that property for about 12 years. So I did a lot this past year in there. I do a lot of rentals in there. And a lot of times, like they said, the rentals will turn into someone who decides, hey, I want to sell it now. My rental is, it's capped at what it was ever going to be. And our HOA does keep on going up in there. And for some people, from a return on investment, doesn't make any sense, so they want to sell it. So I really believe in like more of the touch than sending, mailers out to a certain neighborhood all the time. I do a huge holiday party. I spend almost $5,000 on my holiday party, and every year I pick up 3 or 4 buyers or sellers from that. And so I kind of am like that old school with the business, having that handshake, sending the birthday cards, sending the anniversary for the 1 year of having their home. I have a whole database, my CRM, that takes care of that, notifies me. And thank God for Facebook, because they remind me sometimes of closings or things that happened a couple years ago. But I spend probably 3 hours a day on my computer. I do have an assistant that does help. I do have a transaction coordinator, and I do have 3 other agents that help run out with buyers and stuff. But I make sure that I spend 3 hours a day, Saturday and Sunday included, working my database. And everyone's friends on Facebook. We all see all my postings. I mean, I really try to communicate out there in the community too. And if sometimes they may not be the seller or buyer, but they might have somebody that they refer to you. And I do a lot of relocation too because of that.
Roni, let's go over to you. How do you identify and target neighborhoods for prospecting? And if you were going to touch on turnover rate, can you try and give us what would be an ideal turnover rate that's considered desirable?
I'm going to leave that to Rachael. She likes turnover rates. She's all
Okay.
about that. So, but she at her area also analyzes that a little bit differently. But I'm sure if we were in a room, everybody is going to, if I ask, who wants to farm the area in which they live, everybody's going to raise their hands. So that's how it starts. But the thing is that usually the area, depending on what area you're in, usually the area that you're in, that you want to be in, is saturated. There's a lot of us. I mean, with all due respect, what the beaches has 35,000.
22.
Okay, we've grown. So, everybody wants to do their stuff. My specific office, the Kai's office that I'm in, is in Weston. I know that everybody, and I see some of my colleagues are on here, and thank you. And I know that everybody really wants to do Weston. Weston has a high return on investment. Weston has a high commission. But have you thought of that area of Sunrise that has less people interested in it? Yes, the schools might be different. Yes, the schools might not be as A-rated as they are in perspective to the actual Weston area, but you have an opportunity there because a lot of people don't go for it because it's not A-rated and it's not an easy sale. So when I started, I didn't look at farming. I hate to say it, but 10 years ago, things were a lot different. And when they were a lot different, it wasn't easier, but the communication wasn't overwhelming with social media. So when I started and I did what I did, with my social media groups and my reaching out to people, it was easier. I became an expert because I am an expert in my area. If you ask me, it's funny, somebody from one of my networking groups today said to me, like, I know Cooper City because I was born here. You know Cooper City because you made it your business to know Cooper City. And that is the difference. I made it my business to know everybody. I knew Nikki when she was the CEO of the chamber. Rachael and I have met in the past. It's been a few years, but I made it my business to know everybody, not to be in everybody's business, but to know what is important. So I created Cooper City as my little safe haven. Yes, I live here and it's really easier for me, but it wasn't easy to get the known people out. And the way I got them out, I didn't really, but the way I got them pushed aside a little bit is by knowing, is by being involved, is by, I'm a mother, I have kids, I'm always involved. you know, I'm in the PTA, I'm in this, I'm in that, but not overstretching yourself, which is, I'm sure, something you'll touch on later. But that's the other thing. I don't do a program. I don't do anything else. I am very spontaneous and I have a lot of different ideas. My background is a VP of marketing. So I come from a different angle toward this market.
Okay. Well, with that being said, it's very clear you all have different approaches, and I'm going to pat myself on the back for getting a diverse panel. So thank you all. See, I get to toot my own horn occasionally. But it's clear that you all focus in different avenues when it comes to generating relationships with potential home sellers, whether it's from your referral network, past buyers, past renters, or just going out and building relationships. So how does technology, or maybe technology versus traditional relationship building methods, how does that play into your efforts to generate listing leads and listing contracts? Are you more technology based, consistent with your mailers? Is it more creating conversations in different avenues? How does that play in, if at all, on both sides? Whoever would like to go first this time.
So technology obviously helps. You need to have a presence on social media. I think, you know, myself and the other ladies on the panel, we've been in the business a while, I think at least 10 years each. And I also think there's something about letting your results speak for you. I think that this new generation of realtors into the TikTok and the dancing, I'm not into that. I'm into results. So I think it just depends on how you use the technology. I'm really big into data and showing people the data. You know, our business is not rocket science with pricing. You know, it's everything is out there, right? We have a hard time with pricing sometimes because sellers still, you know, have aspirational pricing and they don't want to listen to us. So I like the technology to really kill my customers with data. If you show them instead of tell them why it's overpriced, why it should be priced here, that sort of thing, I think that technology helps too when you're dealing with sellers and showing them what you're doing to market their property. We send out something once a week to our sellers and show them everything that was done that week in terms of marketing. So I think you have to have a social media presence. I do think that the younger generation of realtors doesn't have it right. I think that if, you know, people need, we're professionals. People need to act like it. I mean, I have people that show me their stuff and it's like crazy. I don't know how like dancing on a bar table in a condo is going to help you get business. So I think you have to use technology the right way. And you have to be present on social media, but we need to act like professionals.
I agree. I completely agree with you, Rachel, and sorry if I cut you off.
No.
It's a matter of using the technology correctly. I abstain from, well, in general, I abstain from politics or anything like that. And especially if it's a business, if it's a business profile, if it's your Instagram or whatever it may be, you know, you're never going to see me dancing in a bar, let alone in a condo. So you take it and you make the most of it. I do send newsletters out once a week. I am always in touch. My lender is on here. One of my lenders, Ken, is on here, and he even reminds me of birthdays. So I always send something. There's always touch points. Even though I don't do the program similar to Nikki, I'm always aware of my CRM and following my CRM. My office manager, Sherry, always says, you know, make sure you touch at least 3 people a day. That is technology. You touch them a day, you know, not physically, let's not be that way. But you touch people a day by you send a text message, you send a video message, you send, hey, how are you? And not be like, oh, are you thinking of renting or buying or whatever it may be? And that's what I'm finding. So my mom's house was on the market here, and an agent from one of the bigger firms, you know, keeps on sending her text messages. He knew it was her birthday. He sent it for her birthday. You know, everything's in the CRM. I definitely understand that. But you're missing a lot of the youngest generation of realtors, not necessarily younger in age, the people who got licensed during the pandemic forget that there's a human behind it. There's a human that wants you to say, hey, how are you? And seriously mean, how are you? And don't forget that technology takes that away. So at the end of the day, be a person first and then move on and, and then use technology. Always remember to pick up the phone, better than texting. Always remember that even if you sent an email, follow it up by saying, hey, how are you really doing? So Nikki, take it away.
What I'm hearing from you, Roni, is authenticity is so valuable, regardless of leveraging a traditional face-to-face conversation or
Absolutely.
leveraging technology. Authenticity is apparent to consumers for sure.
Absolutely.
Nikki, before I let you jump in, Rachel, you had mentioned about killing your customers with data. Would you mind sharing what CMA tool are you using to push data to your sellers and alleviate those price conversations?
Well, I talked to a lot of different realtors across the country, and our stats on our MLS is one of the best ones to use.
Right.
That's what people want to see, is they want to see what's sold in the neighborhood, the price per square foot, the days on market. I think what happens is too many realtors don't know those things. We've all been saying we do specialize in a certain area. The area that I dominate is Pompano. And I know my numbers there, and again, we can sell in any neighborhood, go out west, out east, it doesn't matter. We all have access to the data. The problem is the realtors don't know it. So they need to know what's going on in there. Really know the information. Therefore, when you go in to get listings, when you talk to people, you are the expert. A lot of times I think people take listings and I do it too. I take overpriced listings sometimes, but I make sure that the client knows that they're overpriced. When you have those conversations before and you show people the data, when something doesn't sell, it's a lot easier to get a reduction. So you really have to know what's going on in the community, know your days on market. And the listings now, that's where the gold is. So people really need to focus on that. But we can have a lot of listings, but like someone said, it doesn't mean anything if they don't sell. It's nice to say I have X amount of listings, but really, it's nicer to say I have X amount of sales. So it's keeping the customer informed, because a lot of times they'll say, oh, this house down the street sold for $1 million, and then it's not comparing apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. So when you're talking to people, you really need to say, and if your listings aren't selling, you need to show them what is, and this is selling because it has a new roof, impact windows, new plumbing. People need to really compare the same thing. I notice a lot of sellers when they come back to you with something and say, well, this sold or this one went under contract in 7 days, I don't let it get to the point where they're asking me questions. So we tell them before, well, this house went under contract, and the reason it went under in 7 days, it's because it had XYZ features. So that's the other thing when you're dealing with your clients. If you can answer the questions that they would have before they come to you, it makes it a lot easier to get what you want in the transaction. And a lot of times that is price reductions, right? So if you can have the information to them before they ask you for it, you're going to be in a much better position to get the desired outcome for both parties.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
what's
Well, let me go to Nikki on that same question.
Jonathan, what's the name of the tool that we have on our MLS, that Sun something?
That's what, something?
Sun Stat.
Stats?
SunStats is great.
Yeah.
We use that all the time.
Use that. It's the easiest way to get a listing when you show that you actually know something.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that in 1 second. Nikki, let's go to you. Balancing traditional and technology when it comes to prospecting and building relationships.
So I was always taught, if you don't know something, hire the person who can help you with it. And that's what I do. Technology was never really a strong suit of mine. I can give you content all day long. So to me, Facebook, I have some younger agents on my team that like this TikTok, and they did it a couple of times. And of course, I always said, dress for success, because you always want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately if you're going to be on any kind of TikTok or Facebook or Instagram thing, because that's obviously what a lot of these agents think, that sex sells. I mean, that's really not the audience there. They're you're trying to sell the house, not yourself. But I happen to like Facebook. I know Instagram seems to be, people will say, but I think Facebook allows you to put more content out on there. You can talk more. Some people like that actually for my demographics, which is about, 35 and over out here out west, they're not really on the Instagram, they're on the Facebook. So they like to see that you could, kind of like post a couple pictures and you can actually see the pictures rather in Instagram, you have to swipe them to go through and you're only limited, I think, to 5 or 6. And then of course, I just think that you could see bigger on Facebook, a video that you post or a listing that you post. So I use Facebook. Then I obviously have I use MailChimp for all of my email blasts, and I do try to send them out once a week or at least every other week, depending on what's going on, if we're in season or holiday. And not just the listings about what I do in the community as well. I think it's important. Like Roni said, it's your business to know your farm area. So I make it my business to know what's happening in the area, whether it's July 4th, things the cities are doing, or if it's events coming up, or if it's a fundraiser, new restaurant opening, stuff like that. It's very important to say that, you're that community realtor supporting small businesses as well, because they're also an economic drive to what real estate is and where people want to live besides schools. So I use technology in the most I can, but I hire someone from MailChimp because I can't stand sitting there playing with the graphic art.
And that makes sense. Rachel, you had brought up mailers and being consistent and not giving up, in 3 to 5 months if you haven't pulled something out of it, but staying consistent. So other than direct mail, what kind of marketing materials are you creating or do you find more effective when it
Well,
comes to
right now there's a lot of expired. So I go after expireds. You have to, really think of the area though, and so I go after expireds in my area in Pompano because I have a proven track record here. But again, it's just about being consistent. The one thing I think a lot of people miss is any type of action gets you results, right? And I think a lot of people get caught up with the language on the postcard, the language on the letter. Just the other day, I sent out an expired letter and I can't see very well. And I printed it and the font was not right in our, my logo wasn't right. Sent the letter out. Then my assistant and Crystal on my team saw it and they were kind of making fun of me. They're like, oh my God, did you look at this letter? Anyway, I got a $1.7 million listing appointment from a letter that didn't look right. So the point of that is I think a lot of people have that analysis paralysis. They'll like study a postcard all day before they just mail it. I don't do anything like that. I just get it out because the more steps you take, action steps, the more likely you're going to get a return, right? Even if it isn't perfect. So I think that you just need to do things consistently, even if it doesn't have like the language you think. Other people will edit a postcard 20 times to make the verbiage right. Most people have a 2 to 3 second attention span. So when they get it, they see your picture, they see your logo, and then they throw it away. So don't get caught up in the little details of time wasting details. Just do whatever you're set out to do, whether it's mailing an expired letter where the font is like 9 instead of 12 and it looks ridiculous. Just get it out and do something. I think that that's a problem. People focus on the wrong thing instead of just the action that's going to get you results.
completely agree. Paralysis of analysis is a real thing and it's heavy in real estate. Nikki, let's come to you. Marketing material creation. What is important for you when you're generating marketing materials to reach out to your CRM, your referrals, your farming areas, etc.?
The proven track record of what I've done probably the last 2 months. So when I do a once a month mailer, I say like just sold, pending, coming on the market. I'll have that. And then like, for example, it was Mother's Day or Father's Day coming up. Like I have one going out, wishing, that holiday. So because remember, I really do my sphere of influence, and the only places that I actually farm in is where I own property because people know me in there. So that's how I feel like I generate my leads to where I own property because I get a lot of referrals from that. So when that happens, I'll do all the closed sales in that, particular community. And then of course, sell with, a homeowner. I never say the word investor, but I say the word homeowner in there because I'm always the one that's always in the homeowners meeting, screaming and yelling at everybody because I know the HOA rules and laws because I'm certified in them. So I tend to do well in there because I also understand too when they need to get lending in some of these HOAs that, you know, are considered condos, even though they're villas or townhouses. I understand, you know, what they need to have for a down payment, explain that and find the lender. They can't find a lender to give them, you know, the lending, find the lender that can. So I also help agents that have the listings in there too, because again, it's having those relationships. They'll call me and they'll ask me. So, I mean, my marketing really is about, you know, my history, credentials, what's, you know, what I've done and what's happening in the neighborhood.
Nikki, who do you use for your postcards to your sphere and your CRM contacts?
I have a guy named Sam, and he creates them, and he does all the mailings for me. I'm more than happy to send that information and share it.
Okay, somebody posted in the chat asking if you don't mind responding to that.
Sure.
Roni, marketing materials. What do you create? What's impactful for you? What's been good?
We, you know, we have, you know, I'm trying to formulate a sentence, sorry. So we've been consistent in sending out digital newsletters. Like I can't remember if it was Rachael or Nikki who said it, that people get a postcard and they tend to look at it for 2 seconds and then it goes in the recycling bin. So we try, that's a waste of money for you. It's, yes, it's exposure, but not all exposure is correct exposure. So what we try to do is, you know, have touch points. Like I said, always doing the just listed, but not just the just listed, you know, doing everything together, putting a few things together with some tips or something like that. We use RSP, which actually Kai's obviously supplies for us. Kai's pays for part of it, so it's nice for us. It's a huge alternative, but RSP also has a lot of different systems in which to track who's looked at it and everything else, so you can get the return on investment. So that's the first thing. The other thing that we use is I'm always on my phone. And I send messages, like even random funny things to my sphere, you know, just because it's fun. Just because, you know, I treat them as if they're my friends, and they are my friends because, oh, God help us, we spend a lot of hours with them. Nikki and I have a transaction together right now of people we mutually knew before. And, you know, David was at that house for 3 hours yesterday. So we all, you know, you want to make sure you keep in touch. I keep on going to the back to the same thing, which is be a human. And even though technology is great and you have your marketing pieces and your flyers and your open house flyers and everything else, you still want to make sure that you're human. The one thing I do suggest is create also a network with your fellow realtors, right? So Jonathan, you were in the group, but you decided to leave. I created a realtor network group on WhatsApp. And the reason we did that is because you never know if somebody has a listing referral or has, you know, anything else they want to transfer over or help you with a buyer in the future. So that's another way to use technology. Guys, WhatsApp is out there, Telegram, I'm old, so I don't use that. But, you know, my son is on Snapchat. He shows me different things. You know, I always post on Snapchat, but I don't know that it's correct because I don't think it's for our age. The other thing I would suggest is getting one of these companies like Property Spark, or I can't remember the other one, that does post relevant things for you on technology, because it is a marketing piece. It is something that is very positive to show that you know what you're talking about or that you have added value. And that is a marketing piece that you can't really put a price on, but you know, it gives you the exposure. At the end of the day, you know, everybody does what they're comfortable with. That is my personal view. Everybody does what they're comfortable with. And my farm neighborhood is 1,600 homes. Most of them know me. And they know me not just because I have a big mouth and I'm Israeli and, you know, everybody can hear us. They know me because I make it a point that they know me. So we send postcards. So we said, you know, I'm active in social media. So we're active. Everybody has an event, you go to it, you help it, not necessarily sponsor it, because sometimes it gets overwhelming, but you know, you're part of it and still you're marketing. Oh, and I have 2 bus benches now because I feel like a real realtor now.
Oh, you stole my next question where we're going. All right. So first off, I appreciate that. And I agree with RSP. I endorse them. We actually just signed a partnership at our company with them as well.
Right.
So completely agree. Rachel, we all can't have great VAs who do it for us. Um, but let's keep going down that pathway. I know you brought up bus benches. Fact or fiction? It is worth the value to pay for a bus bench if you're farming the area around the bus bench. Have any of you had experience with that?
So it's new. I can't tell you. It's very new. And it feels, somebody told me that it feels like I'm competing with another realtor, but it's okay. She has the south side, I have the north side, you know, we keep it separated. But it's exposure. That's all it is, because nobody's going to write your name down or nobody's going to do, but they're going to recognize your name.
Nikki?
I have not done that. People have always asked me to do it. I have not done that because I look, for me personally, advertising dollars. I'd rather have a company party, or I send out very nice gifts, you know, to my sphere of influence. I do sponsor teams and events, so my banner is up at these parks and things like that. I
It's
seem
like
to
a
get a
pseudo bus
return.
bench.
Yeah, I get a return investment. Like I have it, you know, I'm in the church bulletin, I'm in Plantation Parks, Davy Parks, you know, I'm around there. I have not done a bus bench ad, but I mean Roni is known in Embassy Lakes and Rock Creek because she, you know, she lives there, she farms there. So for her, 100% makes sense because that's, you know, that's her farm area. She does very well there.
Rachel, experience with bus benches?
No, I don't do them, but I do have some good friends who have a very strong market share in the Gulf Ocean Mile. So they have bus benches in that area. So I do think it helps. It just reinforces that they're already doing business there because they're known, they farm that area. I think that however you can get your face and name out there is good for the exposure, but you just really have to be careful where you're spending your money. So many realtors spend money in the wrong places and it doesn't give them a return. So you really have to be careful with that.
Completely agree. I think that's a very applicable thing. If you're going into a bus bench advertising campaign thinking you're going to generate leads from it,
Yeah.
that's probably the wrong angle. It's more for brand recognition. And if to make it an easier conversation for you to then go into a listing appointment, host an open house, knock on a door, and just have some more familiarity. Nikki, you had mentioned about fence signs and banners for youth athletic leagues, and there's schools that do a lot of that. Have you had any return as people mention that they've seen your name, your face, anything like that?
Yes. People
Okay.
actually screenshot it to me, send it to me. I have gotten probably the last 18 months, 3 listings from it because someone, you know, didn't realize I was doing real estate. They knew me at the gym. They would see me at the gym, but didn't know what I did for a living. And they saw it and they said, "Oh, you always said hello to me. You're always so kind, blah, blah, blah." And then that's kind of how I got that. I do a thing in my gym too. So
Yeah. Rachel or Ronnie, have you guys done those?
Yep.
Yes, I have some at the field in Pompano. My daughter's on the travel softball team in Pompano. I do think it's the same thing. It's brand recognition. You know, the other mistake I see a lot of realtors making is they don't make it known. Like Nikki said, they didn't know what she does. I make it a point where everybody knows what I do. They may not use me or like me, but they definitely know I'm in real estate. So, you know, don't be a secret agent. Make sure what you do is out there. Everybody always wants to talk about real estate. So if you're meeting new people, wherever it's at, your kids' games or a school or whatever, somehow sneak real estate into the conversation. Not, you know, do you know anyone, you know, needing to buy and sell? But when people ask, how are you? Then you say, you know, I'm really busy. I just came from, you know, the showing. Just make sure that they know you're in the field. I think too many people in this business, you know, they don't tell people what they do and then they lose out. They'll list the house with somebody else. So make sure people know, you know, what your job is.
Yeah, once they list it, it's too late.
Yeah.
Ronnie, anything to add there?
Yes, I'm at all the schools, here and in Davie and Weston. And actually Joanna is in Weston. And, I think one of the mistakes that people make, and no offense to you as a brokerage owner, is that they don't brand themselves. They forget about
Oh, I
themselves.
agree. Completely
And
agree.
yeah, so they forget themselves because let's see, Anna is on here, Anna Moreno is on here, she's from my office. If she needs to put her name first, she needs to be the first person. Any of these people, I see a lot of people that I recognize, like Sarah Lake and Robin Sellner. So it needs to be not their LoKation or Kai's or Remax agent or KW in this case. It needs to be Sarah is the agent, Anna is the agent, and then the second branding comes into being the LoKation or the Keller Williams or whomever of the world. So that is the banners and the bus benches and everything else. That is how you build a brand. You build a brand by being you. You build a brand by, putting it out there. And no offense, for example, Carlos Guerrero, you have a background behind you that says your name here and LoKation. Where the heck's your name, bud? That's part of branding. You're on these, sorry, I don't mean to point out people, but you're on this Zoom and people need to know you. People need to know who you are. Also on social media, I'm Roni Sterin first. Kai's comes way back. The Roni Sterin group, and then Kai's. It's Jonathan, then LoKation. It doesn't come, the broker doesn't come before you. So brand
So
yourself.
I agree. And I'm going to add my own little tidbit to this. So when I was not non-competing, right? And out in the field, my top two referral sources were past renters and Little League baseball. Being involved at the local youth baseball league and starting with relationships. Anytime I communicated with my team, it would come from my real estate email. Anytime I'd be sharing pictures of the kids from dugout antics or after the game, group pictures, practice, it would come from my work email. So a really subtle way of just sharing what you do without being intrusive, annoying, or over the top, right? So let's take a shift here. And actually currently I sponsor my own softball team. So the logo's on the arm. And I can't tell you how many conversations have come out of it just by having the logo on an arm of a recreational softball team. It's ridiculous. But continuing down this pathway, we're going to keep going fact or fiction. Open houses are a good way to brand yourself and obtain leads. Who wants to go first?
Open houses, yeah, sorry. Open houses are a huge opportunity to get business. I convert a lot of people that walk into my open houses as either a future seller or a buyer. I think that it's one of the best ways that you can get business.
Okay.
I agree. Open houses are a great tool if you have a team or you're part of a team, get yourself, or, we have a WhatsApp for our office. So get yourself involved and say, hey, I'll do an open house for you. It's a great way to get exposure, right? So at the end of the day, the realtor comes first and then the brand and then, exposure. Expose yourself. It sounds horrible, but expose yourself. Expose yourself to other people, to even the neighbors coming over and seeing, asking, hey, how much are they asking? Or do they have polybutylene piping? Or do they have this? Or do they have that? It doesn't matter. You show up, be there. People are like, oh, open houses are a waste of time. All in the marketing you do before and making sure that you position correctly.
Nikki, go ahead and add to that.
So yes, open houses does have a lot of opportunity. We have an internal LoKation little Facebook page, and anyone's always welcome to do mine. I'll post it every once in a while to help the new agents come out and see and even shadow with me. And I do have interns that I bring on over the summer from college and high school to give them an opportunity to learn the industry because they got their license. But in the open house, I always have like a bio, and I have like one of my mailers, a couple of my mailers that I probably sent out the last 3 or 4 months that have what I sold, what I do, what's coming, so they can see that I'm just not like selling this house because it's my aunt's best friend. I was hired because of my expertise. So yes, open houses can bring you potential buyers and listings. I've seen a lot now of buyers coming with no agent. So we don't know if they have an agent. We don't know if they're pre-approved because they just walk in, or we don't know if they're a nosy neighbor. So it could be an opportunity that you can just have that conversation that maybe they're starting the process and they haven't gotten pre-approved, or they don't have an agent yet. And that could be an opportunity for picking up buyers as well.
So that we're going to go along with branding. All three of you have talked a lot about having your own brand, creating your own brand, and exposing your brand, right? Not exposing yourself, Roni. So branding, how do you demonstrate your brand? Do you wear name badges? I hated wearing name badges, and the association hates this, but I still won't wear one. So I used to wear t-shirts, and my most common place to put the name on a t-shirt was not even in the front, because it can create an awkward situation. For me, it was the top of the back of the shirt, but that partially
You
leads
have
to me as
no
being a
walk.
man. I don't have hair, but the top
Mhm.
of the back. So when you're standing in line, the person behind me would read that for like 15 minutes while we're waiting for our coffee. So how do you brand yourself when you're out and about and create conversations?
I don't wear any type of stuff like that at all. I just talk to people. When I'm walking with friends wherever, I have one friend in particular, she's like, you talk to everybody. And I do. You just have to find something to say. If somebody's walking by with purple hair, I'll say, oh my God, I love your hair. You just have to open up the conversation to people. I do think it's easier for men to wear the polos with the name thing. I think, I like to dress the part, so I wear dresses. So I don't have anything with, the realtor. I don't wear a badge. I just talk to as many people as I can in a day, and be friendly. People want to talk to people. And I think it's really easy to always sneak real estate into the conversation, because you start a conversation with someone, how are you? How was your day? And then you say something about real estate, and real estate is everyone's favorite hobby, right? I mean, how many of our clients do we talk to and they're like, oh, I'm on Zillow all day long, right? So I think it's really easy to sneak real estate into the conversation while you're meeting new people. So I think it's best just to talk to as many people as possible. And I also think, when you're out and about, you have to present well. That's your brand. How you look, how you talk, how you make people feel, that's the brand, right? It doesn't matter if you have, Rachael Remax on your t-shirt. Your brand is how people remember you. So I think you really try to make a lasting impression of being kind, of, providing value, and making people know what you do. So I think it's about trying to help people, but also every day I try to meet as many new people as possible wherever I'm at.
Agree
Nikki,
100%
go ahead.
with Rachel. Sorry, agree 100% with Rachel. It's being the good person and being, believe it or not, on a test, I'm an introvert. Go figure. But everybody thinks I'm the biggest extrovert ever. But you are, you have to put yourself out there. I don't wear branded anything. I'm like, if I see a name badge, I put it usually, or a sticker, I put it usually on my thigh, and I'm like, I just leave me alone. I can't handle it. Plus it gets caught in the hair. I know, Jonathan, you don't have that problem, but it's also, and
Thanks.
if I do wear something, it's usually when somebody asked a question, I think it was Kate, it's usually at my kids. I'm part of Cooper City Optimist. It's usually at my kids' game. I'll wear a t-shirt, I'll have insignia on it or something like that. And it's mine. It's not the broker's. It's all mine. Sounds like the ring, all mine. But, be the brand. That is what you are.
Nikki?
So I have shirts, workout shirts, regular shirts, going out shirts, hats with my logo on it. I do have on my license plate, Nikki Hanna sold that. I do get stopped for that. Because when I bring my car for service or what have you. And then I do keep, like right now, there's that program that's being launched again, the Hometown Heroes program. I keep those flyers that my lender created with me on them. And I pass them out actually every time I go out to eat to like a restaurant or what have you, because typically the people who mostly need the help and things like that are the hospitality industry, the hairdressers and nail techs. And I'm always giving a flyer. Hey, you know what? what are you waiting for? Stop renting, because I'll always engage. I eat out all the time. I don't cook. So I typically go to the same places all the time. They happen to know me. I always engage in that conversation. And right now I'm passing those out as far as like being the realtor to help people. It's not about the luxury house. It's about getting them started at that townhouse at 400,000, at least getting them in there to start building some real estate wealth. And I tell people my story, how I got into having my certain properties, and how I took money that I got from my divorce when I sold my big house, and rather than going and wasting whatever, I bought several properties with it. Everyone thought I was half crazy, but you know what? 12 years later, they have a lot of equity in them, and I built financial wealth with them. So I always tell my story as well, as that you have to start out somewhere, and it's all about branding. I come from a family of first responders. So I sell to them too, because a lot of these are young people, and the branding is, Nikki helped me do this. So, Nikki Hanna, and I'm third generation here. Everyone kind of knows my last name. So I kind of just always want to be known as what my grandfather did, what my father did, is helping people in the community. So branding to me is your name and who people know you as, and your reputation. So always say your name over and over again. My mother gave me two first names, really, Nikki Hanna. I was named after one of her students.
So we are coming to a close here. I'm going to wrap this up with a final question and any closing comments that you'd like to add. So my final closing question here is the market is changing, right? It's always changing. It's always going one way, the other way. It's slow, it's quick, it's demanding, supplies up, supplies down, etc. So we are transitioning, and you're going to be forced to pivot. How are you changing your prospecting or your relationship building efforts as the market is shifting and what we have coming in front of us? And then any closing commentary you'd like to add. We'll go one by one, and Roni, I'll start with you, and we'll go to Nikki, and then Rachael, you'll close it out for us.
So I'm not changing. I'm not changing due to the buyer's agreement. I'm not changing due to the 2019 market conditions that many that are on here don't really know. I'm not. There isn't a reason to change. There's a reason to be proactive and fork ahead, and and continue in what you're good at. And if you're generating business, and if you're generating things, make sure that you just continue on being you. I think that there isn't really a reason to change. That's personal, but it's all you guys.
Awesome. Nikki, to you.
So I'm always believe in training. You can never be over educated with whatever's going on. So, and I've asked you too, Jonathan, like what's going to be the next thing? When's actually the thing is going to go into effect? Because at first in July, then it went to August, all these new stuff. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to change what I'm going to say I'm going to list your house for. Any new agents that are on this podcast, call me. I will go with you on a listing appointment if you need to, lay the land down with people. Because I always say, do you work for free? Do you discount your services? And when you throw it back in their face, I think people then realize that, you're the real deal. Because if you have a track record, and that's another reason why people should be on a team, because if you don't have a track record, you can use the team's, sales to help push you, because we all had to start somewhere. But as far as, the new things that are changing, I think we've all been adapting and overcoming since, COVID. I mean, we never knew the market was going to, flourish like this, and we didn't know we were going to have some hiccups, the interest rates, this and that. But historically, since 2000, when I had started very young out of college, I saw all kinds of crazy things happen. Interest only, this and that, crash of this, but we all succeeded in crazy times. The good ones will always succeed, because you have to know your industry, whether you're a realtor, whether you're a doctor, because doctor market has changed. The hair market has changed. Everything's changed because there's always competition, and the internet's always coming in and taking over stuff. So it's just learning your job and standing by your product, and, keep on doing good work, and you'll have the referrals.
Awesome. Rachael, wrap this up for us.
Sure. I think the conversations with buyers and sellers are going to change. So you need to know how you're going to answer questions. I'm already getting questions on my listings, listing appointments. Oh, I thought I only had to pay 3, or, that sort of thing. So you really need to be well versed in how you're going to handle the conversations with buyers and sellers and know what you're going to say. A lot of times when buyers and sellers ask us something, we take it as an objection and it's just a question. So pause for a second, be very slow and deliberate and answer it the right way. I think too many people get nervous when they get asked the commission question. I've seen people cut their commission before sellers even ask them to cut it. So just be careful with the way that you answer things and realize everything's not an objection. Sometimes it's just a question. How I'm going to change things is I'm going to double down my efforts. I think a lot of people are going to shrink back in a market like this. The cream will continue to rise to the top, but we're going to have to work harder to make the same amount of money. In my market on the east side, some of my competitors, I'm already seeing them offer 1.5 out to the buyer's agent, which is crazy. And they get a lot of listings. I'm thinking of one person in particular that does that. So the conversations are going to change for me in taking listings and dealing with buyers. But I think we really are going to have to work harder than before, because this is a big change. And every change that's come about in the industry, the iBuyer, the Zillow, COVID, people freak out. But the people that just keep their foot on the gas and continue to work every day, I don't get caught up in those conversations that a lot of realtors do about like complaining. I don't complain if an appraisal comes in low. I don't complain about other agents. I focus on money-making activities. If I leave my house, my kids and my husband, I'm going to make money. That's what I'm doing. I'm not going out to lay 6 hours at the beach. If I go to the beach, I'm going to be talking to people, and be sure that I can put them in my CRM. So I think your time management just has to be really focused. But as far as changing things, I mean, I get listings. That's what I do, and that's what I'm going to focus on. But I think my efforts are going to be more than before, because I think that there's going to be a lot of discount people that come out of this, and sometimes it's going to be difficult to compete with them. No matter how much value you show to the seller, sometimes they don't care. Sometimes it's all about, what are you making? And you try to tell them it's really about what you're going to net. What I make should be irrelevant. It's what you're going to take home after the sale. So, you just really have to be very focused on what outcome you want and go for it.
All right, that wraps up our hour. Thank you, panelists, for taking part of this, and I hope everybody
Thank
walks away with some valuable information. Next month, our session is about buyer and seller presentations. So look for that information to go out for another Agents to Agents webinar series. Nikki, Rachel, Roni, love you guys. Thank you so much for taking part in this, and I hope you all walk away with value.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Have a good day, everybody.